Welcome to Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever's Careers in Conservation. This series will highlight the unique professional opportunities available within our nonprofit organizations, share some of the incredible work we're accomplishing across the country, and hopefully inspire future generations to join our team in creating, enhancing, and restoring critically important upland wildlife habitat. After all, together, we are the Habitat Organization.
I guess my entire childhood, looking back, was pretty much outdoors. I very rarely was inside unless it was like a rainy day. And I really wanted to do something that felt like I was giving back to the environment. So my name's Olivia Lappin. I work at Pheasants and Quail Forever. I am the Integrated Habitat Management Rights-of-Way and Energy Coordinating Wildlife Biologist. It is quite a title. But I work on our rights-of-way and energy program to remanage rights-of-ways in ways that are good for wildlife. But I also am the Southeast seed representative, so I design seed mixes for the Southeast region. I did not grow up in a place that had bobwhite quail. I had never seen one, I had never heard one, and I honestly didn't know anything about them. I started getting into bobwhite quail during my master's degree, so I went to Mississippi State, studied bobwhite quail there. And so one thing that I did during my master's degree is basically net bobwhite quail to capture them and put radio collars on them to track them, to understand habitat use. And this is the one that there were tons of quail in, and then like over in here too. We came up with this idea of using a Bluetooth speaker, playing female calls off of it to try to attract males to fly through a net. I do have more paracord too if we want to try to like tie. I'll grab it just in case.
What I've noticed, at least, and I think Adele's noticed too, is like the more, I guess if there's a bird there, they'll come to it. Like they're not the smartest things, at least here.
Yeah.
So I don't really think it'd make much of a difference.
Especially right now, probably a lot of the females are nesting, so there's a lot more opportunity when they do hear a female that's not nesting. They're like, oh yeah, we're going over there. Yeah. Maybe we could be like halfway in the trees and halfway out or something like that, and just see. Maybe he'll cooperate. Does that look good over there? Cool. So I've been working for Quail Forever for a little more than a year now. I interacted with a lot of the farm bill biologists and other staff with QF before I even started working for QF. Going to different bobwhite meetings and events, I was constantly interacting with them. And then actually before this position, I had another private lands job up in South Dakota, and I was still interacting up there with Quail Forever biologists. They always were at the same meetings that I was at, and they seemed like they loved their jobs. Everybody seemed very friendly with each other, willing to help each other, because again, we all had the same goal. We all had the same mission. Good as it'll ever be. Grab this bag, and I guess we'll just sit over there and just try. It's kind of similar to turkey hunting. I usually kind of just vary which calls I use. This is a typical bobwhite. Sometimes if it's really not being cooperative, I'll play another bobwhite just to kind of, make him angry and maybe he'll come in. The second one is more of like a female calling to him. Sometimes that one doesn't even work, so I'll kind of mix up with the other two, and I just kind of mix it around like turkey hunting, trying to see what will entice him to come in. did you guys plant this again?
Yeah, so this one was planted in late March of this year.
Okay.
And so, yeah, this was part of a 327 planting, or a conservation cover planting through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program that this landowner did. And you can see in this first year we're getting a lot of annuals, which is typical, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what's going to respond first. When we build seed mixes, we're really trying to make sure that we're filling all the gaps, right? We want something that shows out really well in that first year. One, to keep the landowner happy, two, to go ahead and establish on the site, and three, to provide some wildlife benefit as well. A couple plants that we really like for that first year are this common ragweed that we've got growing right over here. You can see there's a bunch of it actually out through here. And that's an excellent plant for bobwhite quail. It creates really good structure for brooding, attracts a lot of insects, and the seed is really sought after for quail. I was actually the first farm bill biologist hired in the state of Mississippi. It's been a fun ride. It's been all uphill, but looking back, it was all worth it. And now we actually have 4 positions in Mississippi. Well, 5 if you include me. I'm now functioning as the state coordinator, and we have 3 farm bill biologist positions and Olivia's position as well. And we have multiple staff in Alabama, Louisiana, all the surrounding states. So it's been cool to watch it grow since 2019. When we're building these seed mixes, we're really trying to mimic what would have naturally occurred in that site.
Yeah.
So learning as much as we can about natural plant communities in that area, spending time in places that are managed very well and have been for a while, and learning what plants occur, kind of at what rates they're present, and how we can build mixes that mimic what would have naturally been here.
So usually you'll decide if somebody needs a seed mix just based on that past history of it. So it just landowner by landowner basis, you're kind of deciding, maybe what you have here is already good. Do you often find that you might try to just establish what's already in the seed bank before even putting in a planting, and then later deciding, all right, maybe we need to add some seed in here?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's always where I start out. We always try to give Mother Nature a chance.
Yep.
I'm learning every day, and I love that about my job, that there's constantly something new to learn and digest and think about. Being able to apply what you know from a scientific perspective on actual land, and with an actual landowner who has, their own thoughts and their own limitations, and being able to find that middle ground between what you know is perfect and what is actually attainable, and being able to apply that so that everyone wins.
Most of my stories are when I was doing my master's degree studying quail, and I had little radio collars on the birds and would track them, and the birds would obviously leave the property that I was studying on. So I was constantly having to call neighboring landowners to ask them to go track these birds on their property, find their location and so forth. And ever since I made that connection, they would get so excited that they had a quail on their property, and then I kind of would keep in touch with them. So there's a landowner that's across from the place that I did my research on, and he texts me and calls me every time he sees a bobwhite quail now. And they get more passionate about it knowing that they have birds on their property, and then that is kind of what drives them to want to keep the birds on their property. How's it going?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Good, nice to see you
Nice to
again.
see you too. So, you want to come over here and we can look at
Yeah.
kind of see what the plans are
Sure,
for
that
the
sounds
property,
good.
I guess. So this would be, in my opinion, a perfect example for a pollinator habitat. Being able to sit on the back porch, look at everything
Yeah.
blooming.
It's absolutely those connections with landowners and just feeling the fire and passion that people have for these birds and for managing their land, and how rewarding it is for them when they first hear that bobwhite quail get back on their property. They manage their land for months, and then they hear that first bobwhite quail or they see one, and they're ecstatic. Pretty much every day I'm getting a phone call from a landowner, and they're asking, what can I do to get more quail on my property? Or what can I do to improve the habitat on my property? Usually my initial thing is asking, okay, well, what's there? What are your goals?
A lot of this ground is rolling hills. We definitely want to get trees all on the high ground where the hills are for erosion control. You know, farming's okay and everything, but in the wintertime, there's no cover crop out here right now. So, I mean, it's going to be really beneficial for us to get some trees, at least something on it. You know, it needs to have something on there that's not just farm ground. But yeah, I wish the whole place looked about like that.
And the truth of the matter is that, you know, when we had bobwhite quail, we had them as a byproduct of how we managed land. People never purposefully managed for bobwhite quail in the first place, with several exceptions. There were some larger properties that did, but the general landowner was just happy to have them, right? So being able to, you know, step in and meet with landowners who have that history or that knowledge of bobwhite quail and an interest in them and are, you know, curious about how to have them on their own property, and being able to tell them that, like, look, this is possible. It isn't like we just don't have them anymore, which is the narrative I got growing up. We have to change the way we do things. Obviously, the way we generally manage land now does not produce very many quail, right? So we have to do some counterculture land management. But it's possible, you can absolutely do it. We just need to fine tune a few things.
You don't need hundreds of acres to make a difference. You can do a little bit on your property, and that might help the pollinators, it might help the quail, the turkeys, or the deer, whatever your interest is. But just people understanding that conservation is for everybody, the outdoors is for everybody, you can be involved with it, you just have to reach out, and there's gonna be people there to help you, and that's what makes me so passionate about working for Quail Forever, is because we're all here for the same thing. We want to help landowners get conservation on the ground. We want more birds in the air. We want better habitats for all the wildlife. So it's really rewarding to work with a group of people that all are similar-minded, working towards the same goal of getting more habitat on the ground and just helping landowners realize that they can do it and we're here to help them.
Being able to spread that story and be able to work with landowners and, you know, just really educate folks, I think that's been the biggest niche that Quail Forever can kind of fill in the Southeast when it comes to quail management.
Rights-of-ways are basically just these long linear strips, whether it's like a power line or gas lines that get managed usually with short vegetation. What we do with Quail Forever and our Rights-of-Way and Energy program is, if an industry is looking to try to remanage their right-of-ways and save money, we go out and we assess thousands of points, combine all this data of vegetation of what's out there on the right-of-ways now, and then come up with a plan to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to remanage them? Because they're so heavily disturbed all the time from mowing. It gets a lot of invasive species on there. So what we're really trying to do is figure out ways to save these companies money, but also that's going to benefit wildlife. If you're not mowing it all the time and you have that early successional vegetation, you know, after disturbance, that first vegetation that comes up, which a lot of our wildlife, our quail need this, with this kind of new upcoming integrated habitat management, it's focusing more on, okay, well, let's manage the vegetation, but in a way that's actually going to help specific wildlife that we're interested in. It might take a few years to see that response from different management on these right-of-ways. And every place is different because these right-of-ways span the US. So what we're doing out west in Idaho is probably going to be very different than the management that we're doing here in Mississippi.
Every day thinking about the future and future goals, like in a lot of ways we're already blowing it out of the water from what I expected, right? We went from just me in Mississippi and Alabama to now we have, oh goodness, I guess 11 positions on the ground. That has been really cool, and I hope we can upscale that to some degree. You know, not growth for the sake of growth, but intelligent growth, be able to add a little more capacity, a few more positions to help, you know, help out our partners and be able to get more fire on the ground and more quail whistling.
I'm very open to where, you know, my career might go eventually. I'm very content and happy where I am here, but I think as long as I'm doing something that is helping put habitat on the ground, I think I'd be happy. As long as it's helping landowners and helping wildlife, I think I'd be pretty content doing anything.